The views and opinions expressed in the following program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of KSMQ Public Service Media Incorporated or its assigns.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Passingham. Welcome to Garden Connections. On today's program, we're going to be visiting the S.M.A.R.T garden at RCTC in Rochester, Minnesota. We'll also be learning about shrubs from an expert from the Minnesota Landscape Arboretum, and Chef Stephen Larson gives us a great recipe for cauliflower. Stay with us. Garden Connections is next. We're here at the S.M.A.R.T garden on the campus of Rochester Community and Technical College, and we have as our special guest an expert. He was in on the original ideas for this garden, and we are pleased to welcome Vern Bushlet. Thank you so much for being on Garden Connections.
Thank you, and thank you for having me as a guest. So appreciate it very much.
So you were in on the ground floor. Tell us a little bit about the idea for this S.M.A.R.T garden.
Well, prior to 1991, excuse me, there was a hort program here years before that, but it was curtailed. So in 1991, when the University of Minnesota Waseca closed and moved all of their horticulture program to St. Paul, we were devoid of any post-secondary horticulture here in Rochester. So we submitted plans and so on and went through a whole litany of things that had to be done. And to make a long story short, we were approved in 1992 to start the program of horticulture technology here at RCTC.
Okay, and how does the S.M.A.R.T garden fit into that program?
The S.M.A.R.T garden is an extension of what we teach in the classroom or in the labs. We deal with landscape design, landscape installation, turf management, floriculture, garden center management, greenhouse crop production, urban forestry, and the S.M.A.R.T garden is an extension of what we deal with in the classroom.
That covers quite a bit of territory. Now, S.M.A.R.T is an acronym. It's not just that it's a really intelligent garden. Tell us a little bit about S.M.A.R.T.
Okay, S.M.A.R.T, kind of a unique name how we came up with. S.M.A.R.T, sustainable, medicinal, artistic, resourceful, and thematic. So you can take any one of those terms and broaden it to include what we're going to see here in the S.M.A.R.T garden.
All right, and you're going to show me around, aren't you?
I sure will.
All right. Well, while Vern and I head into the garden, we're going to send you to the Minnesota Landscape Arboretum, where you're going to learn about shrubs. At the University of Minnesota Landscape Arboretum, and we are in one of the many shrub collections, and we're going to learn a little bit about shrubs and how you can use them in your backyard. And our special guest is Jeffrey Johnson, and he is the landscape gardener for this area. Thanks so much for being with us.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
So when people come to you, as I'm sure they do often when you're out working in this area, and they say to you, I need to put a shrub in this part of my yard, what typical advice do you give them in terms of how to determine which best plant can fulfill their needs?
Well, you have to have a little background information first and foremost. Analyzing your site. What kind of light do you have? How much room do you have for the plant? Plants get very large and some of them stay quite small. What kind of soil do you have? Is it on a slope or not? Exposure, which way is the slope facing? West-facing slope is going to be much more hostile than an east-facing slope, that kind of thing.
So you like morning sun better?
I do, and the plants do too.
And the plants do too. All right, so it's more of a game of 20 questions when someone approaches you.
Absolutely.
Okay, so you have many collections here at the Arboretum. We happen to be standing in a barberry patch, as it were. Tell us a little bit about some of the varieties that are available. Let's talk about this particular one. We've got a big tall one behind us with some beautiful flowers. We've got some other multiple colors. What are we looking at with this particular plant? How could we best use this one in our landscape?
Well, these are primarily used for filler plants. This one here, the Aurea, has made it through our very harsh winter. This past winter was really tough on a lot of trees and shrubs. And so you can see the distinction between this cultivar and this other cultivar here, I'm sorry, the Monry, which took a big
tougher
hit.
time. Yep.
Yep.
Now, is a plant like this, we did have a really tough winter. Can this recover if you trimmed all of this back? Can you salvage this plant, or is there too much gone and a homeowner should really start again?
It's a really subjective question, and it really has to do with the homeowner's preferences and their amount of detail that they want in their landscape. If they're willing to allow a plant like this to recover, certainly we can get it to grow back and fill in and be just fine, as long as we don't have multiple winters like we did this last winter. This plant looked very, very nice last summer, but we had 10 or 15, maybe even 20 years of somewhat abnormally mild winters.
So it kind of had gotten used to a softer run.
Well, we had a harsh winter last year, more like an old-fashioned winter here in Minnesota.
Right, and yet some that you have survived beautifully. I love the bright kind of yellow-green color to that plant.
Right, great accent plant if you like the size and the stature of the plant. They also do get berries, and they can be attractive, but that can also cause some problems, in that some people are having problems with some of the barberry in that they have become invasive in certain landscapes.
Okay.
So not unlike buckthorn or garlic mustard or euonymus is an issue with some people.
So these will self-seed through the berries?
They will.
Okay, so something to watch for when you're considering placement. When people are selecting shrubs for their yard, do you recommend a potted plant or do you suggest they go bare root?
Well, if you can get bare root in the springtime, it's only available in the springtime because of the requirements of the plant, the roots, and it takes much more careful handling if you're going to plant a bare root plant. But if you can get it, I have a whole yard full of trees and shrubs that I planted bare root. But the availability isn't there later in the spring and summertime. Container plants are just fine.
Okay. And those you can plant, your time frame is a little more forgiving for those.
Pretty much, in my opinion, anytime you can dig a hole in the ground, you can plant a potted plant. Okay. Loosen up the soil a little bit, plant it at the proper elevation, and give it a little shot of water after you plant it. Give it a little mulch, and it should do just fine.
Well, you mentioned azaleas, and that is one of the great success stories here. Let's go take a look at that collection and talk a little bit about the university's research.
Sounds great.
All right. On Garden Connections, we'd love to see photos of your garden. Or if you have questions for our garden experts, contact us by emailing garden@ksmq.org. or like us on Facebook. We're here in the azalea section of the Arboretum, and Jeffrey, this is one of the success stories. Tell us why.
Well, these azaleas, we have a light series that we've introduced to the public. They're available at various garden centers around the Midwest. And the thing is it was started here, goes way back to the 1960s when they started crossing some of the azaleas they brought here from other locations, analyzing and evaluating their hardiness. And then they made some crosses and realized that one of those crosses developed a very hardy strain, and they call that the Northern Lights azalea strain.
Okay.
But then after that, they continued to make crosses and realized that they could asexually or clonally propagate these plants into a cultivar. And that's what we have here is Mandarin Lights azalea. And
it's just beautiful. Look at that color.
So there's about a dozen varieties, cultivars, of light series azaleas. My favorite being the Northern Highlights azalea. It's a white flower with a yellow crest above the flower.
Okay.
And anyhow, we're still evaluating these on an ongoing basis. There's ongoing controlled crosses here at the Arboretum. So if you ever come out to the Arboretum and see bags on the trees,
Oh,
That's
okay.
what that's about.
Did a beautiful job with this one, to be sure. You also have a couple more projects that you showed us in process. Tell us a little bit about, because research is a big part of it. I mean, I teased about this being kind of like shopping in a candy store. You come out and pick out your favorite plants, but some of them are ones that are untried yet, that you're testing to see if they'll work. Tell us about the two projects that you have going.
Sure. Well, just a little bit of background. The Arboretum formed here just to trial plants. It really goes back to Dr. Leon Snyder back in the mid-50s, and he basically ran out of yard space to trial plants. So he and a bunch of friends and garden clubs got together, bought a piece of land, and started planting things out and just trialing them, see what grows,
see what works.
doesn't. And it's developed from there. Right now, we just put in a forsythia planting of about 50 different cultivars, and that's replicated 3 times in the planting so that each cultivar is represented 3 different spaces, randomized, all that kind of stuff. And then Steve McNamara, the scientist on that project, is going to be evaluating those plants over a number of years, probably 5 or 6 years. Papers will be written on that evaluation. And then sometimes we might introduce a fact sheet to the Extension Service that can be distributed via master gardeners.
Now you also have a hydrangea
Right.
group, is that? And they're a little further along in this
They
trial.
are. Kathy Zuzek, one of the extension educators in the Extension Service, this is one of her side projects. And she's working with an Earthkind program out of Texas A&M University. It's a cooperative research program. They acquired a whole bunch of different hydrangeas, about 30 different cultivars, and triplicated that as well. And they're going to be evaluating and are continuing to evaluate those for a few years here. The plan is to use those cultivars that are really good to establish a hydrangea collection here at the Arboretum.
Okay.
We'll rearrange them and things and put them
right.
into a nice landscaping setting.
Sounds great. Well, there is so much to learn here. Thank you for sharing your knowledge. This is a beautiful example of something that worked really well with the mission of this organization. Thanks for taking time with us today.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Stay tuned. More Garden Connections is coming up next. Well, this is a lovely gazebo. It's a great place to enjoy the beautiful garden.
In addition to this gazebo, Stephanie, everything you see in the S.M.A.R.T garden was done as a part of the education curriculum that we teach our horticulture students.
Your students. Great laboratory, as you were saying, an outdoor laboratory. What kinds of things do these students, what are they going to do hands-on out here?
Well, as I said, everything you see out here, including this gazebo, was built by the students. The stonework was built by the students. The beautiful waterfall you see behind us and the water feature, that was all done by the students. We have a golf course putting green behind the garden, or behind the feature here that we can't see. Flower beds, flower gardens, retaining walls. Any structure that you see here is incorporated into our curriculum somehow or another.
So they learn how to select the right plants for different situations, you know, the shade of a gazebo. As we see, we've got some beautiful potted plants here, as well as the bright sun out, and they also learn hardscape work too.
Absolutely. One of the first things about plants is identifying the plant material, knowing what its function is, where to use it, how to use it, and when to use it. So it's important that they have the understanding of the identification, and then its features. Does it have the proper texture? Does it have the proper size and shape for whatever you're trying to accomplish?
So much to consider.
Oh, very much so.
So, SMART, sustainable. Tell us a little bit about how you meet that mission.
Sustainability, to me, means something that you can maintain and keep it going indefinitely. Obviously, there are changes out here in the S.M.A.R.T garden from year to year, but the whole concept of the S.M.A.R.T garden is sustainable in that it's used in the spring, summer, fall, and maybe even in the winter for winter identification of trees and shrubs and so on. So.
And even structural interest too. I would think, you know, some different trees look different in the winter than they do in the summer. I see you have it looks like a weeping variety of a tree over here, which is always pretty even when there are no leaves on the branches.
Yes, and that takes in the that takes in the artistic aspect of the word smart.
Okay.
So I think if you look at landscaping outside, it's kind of like the interior decor that you would do of a home.
Sure. And you have some beautiful artwork out here too.
Yes, we do. As part of the building of the facility, there was a certain percentage required by the state to have as art. So the art piece we have in the garden here reflects some of the growing and some of the symbolic hardscaping materials that can be incorporated.
Great. So let's talk about medicinal. That kind of surprised me when I learned about the S.M.A.R.T garden. Do the students come out and actually harvest things from the garden that they then distill for homeopathy, or what's that connection?
I think so far in this garden, and it'll probably change over the years, medicinal meaning simply being able to relax, being able to enjoy. Our sidewalk was built so that it's accessible for handicap.
Okay.
Medicinal also meaning raised beds in some places. We have a few places out here typical of that where someone with a disability could enjoy working with the plant materials at their level rather than standing up. So medicinal can take on that aspect.
Many meanings.
At this point, we do not have any plant materials incorporated into the garden that are strictly for medicine purposes, but maybe that's coming.
All right. So resourceful.
Resourceful is keeping up with what's new. Futuristic, thinking ahead.
Because garden trends change, don't they?
Absolutely they do. And we have to change with it in our curriculum as well. So we have to have the opportunity for students to work with those kinds of things out here in the S.M.A.R.T garden. So.
And I assume that means that the thematic aspect, your T in S.M.A.R.T, also may change over time. It currently is a prairie, is that right, in some portions of the garden?
Behind us too, there is a large prairie, which is in beautiful bloom right now, by the way. And prairie gardening is a big thing to a lot of people who enjoy the natural aspect of things. A lot of good native plant materials that are growing in the prairie right now. And so when we think of thematic, we think of, as we said, the prairie, but also the water features. Water features are huge in horticulture today, including rain gardens. On the other side of the building, we do have a model of a rain garden that the students work with. But overall, it's just a matter of whatever theme you're trying to create, whether it be arbors, whether it be a butterfly garden, which we have a cluster of plants growing in that area. So there's a lot of different themes related to horticulture that we can follow.
Sounds like a great playground here.
A lot of work involved.
A lot of work, that's true. Now, you are going to show me the greenhouse. You have some interior space that the students can work with as well, is that right?
Yes, when we're through here, we can walk over to the greenhouses and we'll get a good look at what that's all about in our teaching. So.
All right, great. Well, while we're doing that, you're going to be visiting with Chef Stephen Larson and learning a great recipe for cauliflower. Let's go.
Okay, let's go.
Hi, welcome back to the kitchen. I'm going to do a dish with cauliflower. Now, cauliflower is usually much maligned and there's not a lot of recipes out there for it, but it is really one of my favorite vegetables and it is easy to grow around here in your garden. I have a large head of cauliflower here. We're going to steam that and top that with a savory toasted breadcrumb topping. It's called cauliflower Savoyard. Now, to get this ready, get this going, we need to trim up the cauliflower, which I've already done. Basically, we're going to leave the whole thing intact. We're just going to cut that bit of leaf and bit of the core out and steam it whole in the pan. So for steaming, we need a cup of water. I'm going to put that in my pot here, which is hot. 2 tablespoons of butter and a teaspoon of kosher salt. We'll stir that around just until the butter melts and the salt dissolves, which will be very quick. Then we're going to add that whole head of cauliflower. Just pop it right in there. Put a lid on, bring it back down just so it's steaming. So not too high, we just want a simmer in there. And this is going to take, well, anywhere from 10 to 12 to 14 minutes. Depends upon how big the cauliflower is. So this one is probably going to take about that 12-minute time frame. Next thing we need to do is make some breadcrumbs for the top. So for that, I'm going to start off with a 12-inch nonstick pan. I have a 1/4 cup of beautiful dark green extra virgin olive oil. We're going to get that hot. Then I'm going to add about a 1/2 cup of sliced green onions. Now, I'm using green garlic here instead of green onions. Green garlic is simply a spring garlic or a young garlic that hasn't formed its bulb yet. And this is a really, really delicious way to use garlic early in the season. So we'll slice that thinly. Just like you would a green onion. And into the oil it goes. Okay, so that's going to start sizzling pretty quick. For the savory part of the breadcrumbs, we have a little pinch of hot red pepper flakes, give that a little bit of a zing and zest, and a 1/2 teaspoon of kosher salt. Now this is all going to continue to cook while I'm cooking the breadcrumbs, so we don't really need to cook it too far at the very beginning. So just quick sizzle is good. Add our seasoning, stir it in, and then add 2 cups of fresh breadcrumbs. And we'll stir that in, get the oil completely coating everything. And we'll cook that until it's nicely toasted. All right, so it looks like our breadcrumbs are getting a nice bit of browning on there and toasting. That's very important. Want them to be crisp and toasty and delicious. Now we'll check on our cauliflower here. That's looking beautiful. Okay. We're going to take that out whole. Let it drain. And onto a nice big serving plate. And to finish the dish, we'll take a generous amount of those breadcrumbs and go right over the top. So there we have it, steamed cauliflower Savoyard, or with crisp toasted breadcrumb topping. Eating your vegetables can be really good.
Vern, this is like a lush tropical garden inside the greenhouse.
Yes, we're now in our greenhouse, which we have 4 equal-sized greenhouses within the structure that we have here. We happen to be in the interior foliage plant house right now.
So these are house plants?
Mostly what we call house plants or indoor plants. And the course of interior foliage plant production is done during the winter time when we can utilize this and not be outside so much. Yes, it does. Just a comment about the greenhouses here. The other 3 sections are for the bedding plants in the spring of the year. Okay. Another section is for the potted plants. We grow a lot of poinsettias for students to learn how to grow them and how to bring them into color just at the right time.
Okay. Do you sell them then? Can people buy poinsettias from the
Yes, we do, as kind of a fundraiser for our program.
Okay.
And it's been working out very, very well.
Great.
So,
and then the 4th section?
The 4th section is kind of a mixed section where some of the plants, when they get too big and taking up too much space in the one greenhouse, they move to the other. So it's kind of a mixed bag in the
Always helps to have a
in the
spare
3rd. Yes. Yeah.
The facility here also has what I believe you called a headroom. So that's kind of like a workshop area for doing what?
Within greenhouses, you need a place to prepare the plants to come out into the greenhouse to grow. So that's what we call our head house, which is behind us. It's just a place for all the prep work, the dividing, the seed planting, the seed starting, and so on. And when they're ready to be grown on, then they move into the greenhouse.
Then they move into the greenhouse.
Right.
All right. And so are these heated? I mean, we've got a lot of coolers, and yet I can feel heat in here. Tell us a little bit about temperature that you want. And we're in the house plant or the indoor plant room. Tell us about temperature and humidity.
At the time that these greenhouses were built, back in '02, they were state-of-the-art, and I think they pretty much still are, where they have control heat for whatever we want to set each individual unit to a certain temperature we can. We've got cooling pads that allow it to be cooler during this time of the year. We've got shade structures to diminish the amount of intensity of the sun. And also we've got a thermal blanket in the roofs so that in the wintertime we can conserve heat in here. So really a state-of-the-art facility.
Vern, is the garden at all open to the public? Do they get to see all this beautiful work?
Yes, it is. The S.M.A.R.T. garden is open to anybody at any time, and as a matter of fact, it's a starting point for a lot of other garden tours that are within the community of Rochester. They come out here to get their tickets or exhibits, whatever is out here and so on, but yes, it's open to the public anytime they care to come out here.
Terrific. Well, thank you so much for giving us a tour of your S.M.A.R.T. garden today. It's a beautiful facility.
Thank you very, very much for having us.
All right, and thank you for joining us. I hope you've enjoyed today's show. I'm your host, Stephanie Passingham. I look forward to seeing you next time on Garden Connections.